Hey folks, Jason Van Tatenhove here, going to start a new monthly installment called Sam's Intelligence Report. My good friend Sam Culper, who runs Forward Observer magazine, has also just published the SHTF Intelligence ebook. I just came out in printed version as well. But Sam puts these classes on across the country. He's pretty much the Patriots community's leading intelligence guy. And I thought it would be great to have him on at least once a month, where he's coming on to talk about what's happening in the news cycle, what are the biggest blips on his radar, and what we should be looking at in ways to improve our own intelligence gathering and intelligence programs within our own communities. So here we are with our first one. I just did this last Saturday with Sam Culper, and here you go, Sam's Intelligence Brief. Now, what do you think is the biggest blip right now on your radar as far as the patriot community goes? What do we need to be looking at as American citizens that are aware and wanting to prepare for what may be coming?
Sure. Well, the Islamic State is the hot topic right now, and we know there's sympathizers. There are all sorts of terrorist organizations already in America, and I mean that's important. And I certainly don't expect any catastrophic attacks. We may see something like Paris, what's typically called a swarm attack, even though Paris doesn't exactly fit the bill. But a swarm attack is a distributed terrorist attack. In India several years ago, I think that was '08 or maybe '09, there was just a group of Islamic terrorists who were armed with AK-47s and grenades and other things. And I think there was another attack like that in Africa, maybe Nigeria. But they just ran around a mall or in a hotel and started shooting a bunch of people. And it was so chaotic, the police really couldn't have a uniform response. And because these guys would be here one moment and then down the street the next, or another location the next. I'd say as far as catastrophic goes from terrorism, that's probably where we are most vulnerable, is to a swarm attack like that.
Now, let me ask you this real quick, Sam. We still see New York City right now actually has opened a liaison office to Paris and France, and we see them on high alert and a very big police presence, militarized police presence in the street. Do you think that's overboard, or do you think that's strategic? Do you think they're doing a good thing there?
In New York? Well, I tell you, I saw where Mayor de Blasio said that they are ready for a terrorist attack. The reality is they can't even stop a street mugging in broad daylight. So I really have to question just how ready they are. I don't think anyone can actually be ready for a terrorist attack because they attacked soft targets. And so unless you have massive police presence on every single corner, in every single department store, in every single office building, in every single hospital, all over the place, you're really not going to be prepared. So And really, the best way to prepare, although progressives and socialists and liberals can't acknowledge us, again, because their ideology informs their reality, having armed good Samaritans is the way to go. That's the way to defend against a distributed attack, is to have a distributed defense. So, like a swarm attack. That's probably the best thing that we can do to be prepared, just be armed and be vigilant. I'd still say, a terrorist attack is, I think, still pretty low in the scheme of things. We may have lone wolf attacks, but as far as an impact, it's going to have a much larger psychological impact than it is actually going to have a physical impact. And of course, we don't want any loss of life, but I would say, that's important. That's on my radar, but that's probably not my top concern right this second.
How likely do you think it is that they have the ability to reach out and touch us here in America as they have in France? Is that something they're actively working towards? Do you think they're already there where they could pull off something like that here, or is that just in the future?
Well, okay, the Islamic State, look, we saw this massive change from Al-Qaeda after 9/11. Okay, they said, we're going to stop trying to train a team, and insert them into other countries. Instead, what we're going to do is allow these individuals to self-radicalize. Okay, they realize the more they communicate, especially internationally, the more they communicate, the higher their profile rises. And so what they want to do is cut out all communication. So what they're effectively doing is propaganda by deed. Okay, so the Paris attacks, propaganda by deed. The shootings, the Chattanooga shooting, the Fort Hood shooting, the Boston bombing, all these things are propaganda by deed. These aren't large, sophisticated, operations with weeks worth of planning. So really the danger there is that 2 to 5 people, 10 people who don't talk on the phone could really do some damage, and it kind of goes under the radar, because if you don't communicate through email or telephone, then you take away the surveillance state's ability to catch you. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, so basically you're saying it could be the potential's there right now. We don't know because we don't have the intelligence, right?
Yeah, it's not a potential. Those things have happened in the past. Their potential is 100%. It's acknowledged. It's real. It's just it's not something you can predict. It's not something that says, we can say, oh, in the next 90 days we're going to have an attack. Who knows? It could be the next 9 hours. I don't know.
But eventually, you think I mean, just by the model that they've set up now, they have the ability to do it right now.
This is going to continue throughout the rest of our lifetimes.
Gotcha. Well, what is the biggest blip on your radar? If it's not ISIS and ISIL, what is the biggest blip right now?
Probably still cyber terrorism or a cyber attack. We know we're vulnerable. This stuff keeps going on. Obama just signed some stupid agreement with China in the past few weeks, saying that they were going to stop conducting cyber espionage and cyber warfare against us. The very next day they sign that agreement, we get attacked. We get hacked by a cyber team from China again. The very next day.
Wow.
We know that our grid is very vulnerable. The entire world knows that. We know that China and Russia have the ability, if they wanted to wreak havoc on our financial system, on our logistical system, on internet, on critical infrastructure, all these things. And so I would still say cyber is probably our top, or at least probably my number one thing on my radar right now. Because,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because Russia does not want to get into a conventional war. The losses are going to be too high. China doesn't want to get into a conventional war because the losses are going to be too high. We still have technologically superior, not in all cases, but in many cases, maybe most cases. But what they're going to do, and what they've been doing, is pursuing asymmetric attacks. And that's where, if you punch me in the face, I'm going to call your wife and get you in trouble. Okay, that's an example of an asymmetric attack. I'm still going to attack you. I'm still going to cause you pain. I'm just not going to punch you back. And so, I think cyber, where we are extremely vulnerable, is probably my top risk right now.
Now, when you talk about cyber attack in the grid, could they perpetrate like an EMP style event? I mean, could they take down our power grid much like an EMP would? Or would it be more localized? I mean, I've been reading, the reason I bring that up, I'm reading 1 Year Later, which is the second book, the follow-up to 1 Second After, 1 year
Yes.
after, I guess is what it is. And man, it's a scary situation having that power grid go down. I mean, we're looking at, 90% of the population dying off within a year. And people, I think, just aren't ready for that. Could they actually do something like that with just a cyber attack?
Through a cyber attack, yes. I would say, I think an EMP is a relatively low likelihood, because you've got one shot. I mean, if North Korea, let's just say, as many suspect, let's just say that North Korea has that capability, and they may. If it fails, if it doesn't work, and or if it doesn't cripple us, if the effects aren't as intended, the regime's gone. And so, that's our response and global response, I think, is a limiting factor there to the likelihood of something like that happening. I will say the one caveat to that is if national sovereignty is threatened. If we threaten the national sovereignty of Russia, I think we could experience some catastrophic event. We could, if we threaten the national sovereignty of China. They're under the same circumstances. I don't expect them to have a measured, scaled response. As far as an EMP being launched, I say low likelihood. The effects of EMP through a sustained cyber attack, certainly it could happen.
Wow. Okay. Good to know. I didn't realize that they could actually, pull down the whole grid like that, and it's definitely something to think about, because I know that now my life wouldn't be as altered as it once was, but for most Americans, having that electricity go out, especially during the wintertime, is going to be just a world-changing event. We're so used to electricity and having that power grid that I see it as a likely target, and pretty scary to think about.
Sure. I'm accused of being long-winded sometimes, but SCADA systems, I forget exactly what it stands for. I have a bunch of engineering friends who've been telling me about this stuff, but the SCADA system, what allows power plants to talk to the grids, okay, it's all based off the internet. So if they can get out to the internet, then adversaries can get in through the internet. And so that's problematic for us. That's one of our vulnerabilities for sure. It's a slam dunk case. It could happen. I mean, it's a realistic threat.
All right. And really not one that we can prepare much for, other than making sure we have the basis of heat, food, shelter, all that squared away and able to work without electricity, really.
Absolutely.
All right, Sam. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I definitely want to have you on regularly to talk about what you feel are the biggest blips on your radar for the patriot community out there. And I love the work you're doing. Thank you so much for putting it out there. You're one of the only people actually putting forth this notion of learning intelligence, and it's great. I think we need it, and we sure hope everyone else checks you out as well.
All right, Jason. Well, thank you for the time. I'm glad to do it. If you need anything else, I'm an email or phone call away, bud. Thank you.
All right.